You're listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock
Alright, stop!
with Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
All right, welcome back to Hockey Talk on the Rock.
Yeah.
It's Monday, October 12th, so happy Thanksgiving to all us Canadians, eh?
Yeah.
And we got a lot to talk about after all the crazy signings. Not as much as crazy in the past, I guess, but
Yeah, it was
still...
a bit slow on the Friday, which was kind of expected, I think.
Yeah.
But it's picked up here, and actually today, right away, Pietrangelo finally signed somewhere. So
Just before we did this. He did it for us.
Yeah, the two big guys are off the board now, which is nice. So we got some stuff to talk about there. And yeah, you want to jump into some of the big signings, or jump into winners and losers? Where do you want to start?
You take the lead here.
Okay. Well, I guess we got the big news right before coming here that Pietrangelo signed in Las Vegas. 7 years, $8.8 million. They have right now about $1 million in cap space before this signing, so they're going to have to move out at least one body, if not more. So it's an interesting move by Vegas. I don't really think it was necessary for them.
No.
And I think they'll probably end up regretting it. So, I mean, I'm kind of happy because I don't like Vegas.
Me too. I'm with you. I'm with you all the way there.
But it was interesting. And then the more shocking move, I guess, yesterday was that Taylor Hall signed in Buffalo.
Yeah, really weird. I guess he wasn't getting offered that much money elsewhere, though.
I guess not. Again, for Buffalo, it's smart. It's such a low-risk move. 1 year, $8 million. They have the cap space. They needed players. Right? There's no move clause.
Right.
But basically, at the trade deadline, if they want to move him, I'm sure he'll be willing to waive it to go to a playoff team. Right. So it's pretty nice for them. It's nice for Jack Eichel. I'm sure he's happy.
It's really weird for a player who's seen so little playoff action in his career to go to the team that has the longest streak of not being in the playoffs,
and all the rumor was that he wanted to win. So people were saying, Colorado, Boston, Nashville, these teams, and I was like, okay, I can see it. And then Buffalo, okay.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna have let's predict where he's going if he wasn't signed for this episode, and I was gonna say Boston or Nashville, and Buffalo was nowhere near my radar.
Yeah,
but stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff happens. And then Tyler Toffoli earlier today signed in Montreal for a very decent $4.25 mil,
frustrating,
which is quite horrible for us Canucks fans.
We'll circle back to the Canucks talk because that's not going to be an easy one.
I was just doing the recent signings. The Canucks talk will be a bit of a rant.
Yes, for sure. No, that was disappointing, especially like you said, the cap hit was very palatable.
Yeah, and if you think about a team that would have been interested in Taylor Hall, like Montreal, getting Toffoli for half the price is pretty nice.
Yeah, I read a lot about how Mike Hoffman was on their list if they didn't get Hall, Montreal I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it kind of says to me that with Toffoli going there that Hoffman's not interested. And this afternoon while I was doing my work rounds, I heard them talking about Vancouver being a potential Hoffman landing spot, which pluses and minuses because there's a lot that Hoffman doesn't do well, but he certainly can score.
Yeah. They need someone, again, we'll come back to the Canucks, they definitely need someone in that top six, though, now that Toffoli is gone, so it'll be interesting. Mm-hmm. Anyways, those are kind of the recent signings that I can remember.
Yeah, and then, Torrey Krug went to St. Louis, which I thought was super smart. Just basically replace Pietrangelo with a little bit younger guy. Yeah,
I thought it was a smart move by them. I thought it was a good deal for them. I thought that Krug was going to get more.
Me too.
So it's nice for St. Louis. And again, that's a team that their core is getting older. They need to, if they want to win again, they're going to have to go all in. So it makes sense to me that they picked him up. So good for St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they saved a little bit too because they offered Pietrangelo 8 at 8, right?
Yes.
So they did save a bit of money too.
Yeah.
Smart move.
And evidently Boston didn't talk to Krug at all. That was the other thing.
That's what he said, not since last year or something, or March,
which is quite interesting.
Really weird.
Yeah.
I'll hop into talking about who I had a short list of winners,
for
7, and then I pared it down to my top 2 winners, and then we'll see what you got if you got something comparable.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I gave Calgary a winner slot because they they've talked a lot about, they haven't had a good goalie since Kiprasov, and I think they said since Kiprasov retired they've had 13 goalies, which is quite a bit.
Crazy, yeah.
So they've kind of, that was the biggest box they needed to tick. And then Tanev, like, I don't know, they let Brody walk and they let Hamonic walk, and now they got Tanev, and that is kind of a question mark, but it's more about the goalie thing that gave the reason for the win for me. I had Detroit. Yep. Even though they didn't sign any superstars, they picked up a bunch of, value players: Bobby Ryan, John Merrill, Thomas Grace, and your boy Troy Stetcher. And then I think, was it today or yesterday, they got Nemesnikov, another reasonable deal. No deals over 2 years, all
super tradable,
super cheap deals. Yeah. St. Louis, we quickly talked about. They got Krug to replace Pietrangelo. They added Kyle Clifford, which I thought that was good for their depth, because to me, they were most successful against Vancouver when their bottom six was throwing their weight around. And when that seemed to stop, Vancouver kind of picked it back up again. So I think Clifford will fit well there. I put Vancouver in the winners because they needed to replace Markstrom, and they did it with the best option, I thought, with Holtby.
Holtby was a good move.
That's all I can say on Vancouver.
That's all I can say too.
And then I got the Capitals. I thought, taking Lundqvist at $1.5 million for a year was a good move. I might have been a little generous there. Yeah. Buffalo came into the winner slot because they got the best forward available with Taylor Hall, and I like their signing of Cody Eakin as a third line center.
That's smart too.
So I think they addressed a few needs, and then finally, and you're not going to like it, nor will most of the people sitting listening, the 3 people, I put the Leafs as winners as well, because they got Simmons. They needed physicality. I think he's nowhere near what he used to be. Yeah. I think Brody was a good pickup. Bogosian could be good. VC could be good. Yeah. For now, I'll give him a win.
Yeah. So I had similar winners to you. I had Buffalo on there. I said, they get Hall, so best forward available, as well as just adding through trade Stahl. So now they have kind of a top 6 that looks reasonable, whereas before it was so top heavy with Eichel's line there. Yeah. And then again with Cody Eakin, I think that's some center depth again with the 3 Eichel, Stahl, and Eakin. So it looks pretty good. They also picked up like Tobias Greeter and players like that can contribute. So I think they did well.
Matt Irwin and Brandon Davidson as well. Cheap deals.
Yeah, again, just cheap, smart, kind of short-term deals that for a new GM, I think he's done a really good job. Kevin Adams there. I put Detroit as well. I put that they, again, no superstars, but good movable deals. If they want to trade them at the trade deadline and let their younger guys play, then they can at that point. But there's some insulation there for them to do something good or better than last year. It would be hard to be worse than last year, right? Yeah. And then I did put as well for boldness, I think Toronto. Okay. But I don't know if it works out for them, as you said. I think Simmons is a bit of a risk. I mean, it's short term, so it's not really a risk. But at the same time, I don't know if he's going to play exactly the role that they want him to play. VC is a gamble. I was just listening to about how he does play more physical now, though. Like, he's gone into a few fights in the NHL, and he can maybe bring a bit of that style to their bottom 6. I think that trade, which brought in Joey Anderson and sent out Johansson, or Johnson, there we go. I think that Joey Anderson is probably going to be a better NHL player than we expect, in the fact that I think he'll be a bottom 6 NHL player, which for the Leafs might be what they need anyway in comparison to skill. And TJ Brody might work, might not. I think it's going to be kind of similar to Barry there, but
more defensive,
but I don't know. Anyway, I think they did something, and give Dubas credit, it wasn't working out with them before, and he needed to switch something up, so he did. And again, Toronto's in a position where they're right up against the cap, so they had to move money out to bring money in, but they did something different, so we'll see what happens. I also had on here Florida. And the reason why I put Florida is I think Wenberg's a good signing. I think Verhaeghe's a good signing. Nudo Vera, who they picked up in the trade's a good depth defenseman. And then Hornqvist, who knows what will be there. The only signing that I didn't really like of theirs was Gudas. So, I don't know. I think that they're doing something. I still don't really know what Florida is. But when I looked at it all together, I thought, they're done okay. And then I think that's it for me for the winners.
Okay. When I tried to pare it down, my top 2, I gave the top 2 winners for the And again, I was really only looking at signings and not so much the trades, but I gave it to St. Louis.
Yeah.
Just being able to replace Pietrangelo and save money, pick up Kyle Clifford, and I gave it to Buffalo, like we talked about, Hall and some smart depth signings.
Yeah.
The losers.
Yes.
You want to start off?
Sure.
Okay,
so I started off with Vancouver.
Vancouver was in my winner and loser pile.
Yeah. So, I mean, outside of Holtby, which I do think was a good signing, they haven't done anything.
No.
And on top of that, all their unrestricted free agents have left them, so that is annoying. And then the decision to keep Jake Virtanen basically over Stetcher and or Toffoli to me makes no sense, because you're going to be paying Virtanen around $3 million. Again, Toffoli signed for 4.2 or whatever. That's pretty close. You could have probably made the money work there. And then Stetcher only signed for 1.7 mil. You definitely could have kept him.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. So I won't get too into that because I think we'll get more into Vancouver at the end.
Oh, we'll get into it.
But Boston was my next one because they have an aging core. They really need to, if they want to go all in, they're going to have to now. They haven't done anything. They've lost Krug and they didn't replace him. They also
Smith.
Yeah.
What do you do?
They also lose out on Hall. So for me, they were a loser. I put Calgary, which is the one different one, and that's just because I think the Markstrom and the Tanev signings are going to bite them eventually. I think Markstrom for the first 3-4 years is probably going to look really good in Calgary, but I don't know beyond that. And then Tanev, to me, is way too much money for Chris Tanev and too much term.
Yeah, I agree.
But I agree with what you said and the fact that I think that it's nice that they actually have a goalie, even though I don't like Calgary and I hate that they're signing all these Canucks. Anyway, I also had Pittsburgh and Minnesota for the same reason. What are they doing? I just put, and then Edmonton because they still don't have a number one goalie.
Yeah.
That was it.
I had Boston, same reasons. I had Edmonton, because their biggest need was goalie, and they brought back Mike Smith, which is stupid.
Yeah.
Minnesota, they only added Talbot, and I don't think he's going to be a humongous upgrade on Dubnyk, to be honest.
No.
The Rangers, because I thoroughly hate the Rangers, and they needed to address their defense, and they signed Jack Johnson first. Why? And then Potato. I don't think those guys are going to fix their blue line. Vancouver, we talked about it. And Columbus, because they made so much cap space leading up to the...
Right? What are they doing?
And then they got no one.
Yeah.
So that was a big question mark. So Columbus is loser, and Chicago, I said they were losers because they
Chicago's the other one. I forgot about them.
They needed a goalie too, and they got Matthias Janmark, which is a serviceable forward, and they're going to gamble on the young goalies, and I don't think it's going to work. And Winnipeg, I kind of put them as losers too because... I mean, they did their work before a little bit with DeMello and stuff, but... They
seem to just be re-signing their same defensemen who are okay, but not a great top... Like, it's not a great top four for them, let alone the six.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what they're doing, Winnipeg. I thought about putting them as a loser too, but I think they've kind of done okay, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's more they've just stayed the same.
So I paired my list for that down to top two losers, and I picked Edmonton.
Yep.
Because Edmonton sucks. And again, like Mike Smith isn't gonna solve their problems. Like, sure, they got Turris, that could be good, but I doubt it. They got Barry, that could be good, but I doubt it.
I think it'll be good on their power play. I think it'll be good for Barry.
Offensively,
let's just say.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's good for the team.
I don't think it's gonna help keep the puck out of the net that much.
No.
And Columbus was my second big loser, just because they did so much work to get all that cap space and they didn't do anything.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Do you have any top loser?
If I had to think on it on the top, I think I agree with both of yours. Who would my top loser be? I don't want to say Vancouver, but I think it's more just my passion coming through that I think Vancouver right now is not in a good spot, so I'll say them.
Okay.
And
then we're still waiting on a couple big names, like I talked about Mike Hoffman, Dadonov, Granlund, Hamonic.
I mean, even Duclair,
a bunch of Holla, Kovalchuk, Vatanen. There's a few decent names out there still. And of those names, I was going to ask you, is there any preferred Canucks targets? Because they do have, $8 to $9 million left?
They have some money. But you have to remember that they're gonna sign Virtanen now for 3 something.
Do you think it's going to be 3?
I think
Especially
so,
when they go to arbitration and
yeah.
say, look at all these veterans who have scored 20 plus over and over, and they're only taking 4.
But I think it's to do with how much he made this last year. Just
Even
so
with
they
the
have
arbitration,
to qualify. I think so. I think it's going to be at least 3.
Yeah.
And he did score, basically 20 goals.
And he made 1.25 last year? Okay.
So, I think he'll get paid. The Canucks need defense. And at this point, I almost don't care who it is. Which is bad, I know. But Vatanen could be okay. He could be a replacement for Stetcher, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that he can move the puck. He can probably play on your bottom pairing there, and he'd be serviceable. They need something more than that. I really hope that they go through a trade, either with Vegas now and get someone off that decor, or again with Tampa. I'd be okay with Cernak. Just gonna throw it out there. Just haven't lost hope on that one, because I think they need that step up, someone to play with either Myers or Edler on that second pairing, whoever they pair with, or with Hughes, let alone. And then they need a bottom pair guy as well, or like a 5th, 6th, or like a 7th D-man kind of thing in there.
I'm holding out hope that maybe Hamonic.
Yeah, Hamonic would be okay.
He does say that he wants to be in Western Canada. He's from Winnipeg, and I don't think Winnipeg is going to sign him.
I'd be okay with them taking a flyer on like a Duclair or someone that's not going to be long term, a Dadonov kind of thing that they could put in that top 6 as well, because I don't think those guys are going to be particularly pricey. And again, because of the flat cap, it will probably be a short term deal.
Yeah.
So if they could do anything for 1 year, I'd be totally fine with it. Because the complicated part becomes next year with Pettersson and Hughes. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's a perfect segue, because I want to quickly bring up that the effect of the Seattle expansion draft and the COVID economy flat cap, it made such a significant impact on the free agent date this year. I made a quick little stat, deals that so far have been signed that were longer than 3-year deals, there's only 5.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And longer than 2 years, there was only 12.
Yeah.
Considering the amount of players that signed, that's incredible compared to every other July 1st. This isn't July 1st, but
the idea
what I'm
of
saying,
July
right?
1st,
Yeah, it's always 3, 4, 5, 7 years. Those are the more common deals, and they're so few and far between. It was really interesting.
It's probably actually helping the GMs out in a way, because that's when they get into trouble, right? Is when you start throwing out those big terms.
Yeah.
But it has been a very interesting off-season, particularly free agency here. And I think we're going to roll into the trades.
Yeah, I've got a couple since we talked last for winners and participant ribbons. There's been 4 trades, so you want to start off with any of those 4? Or?
Sure, let's start off with the Zadorov, basically for Saad.
Yeah.
Because I think that one was interesting for Chicago. But yeah, basically they traded Gilbert and Saad to Colorado for Lindholm and Zadorov, with some picks, I think, in there. But I think this is a clear win for Colorado, especially after the second trade today.
Right.
But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But I think Brendan Saad, it'll be a good top 6 forward for that team, and I don't really know what Chicago's going to do to replace him. Mm-hmm. So I will give the win to Colorado here and the loss to Chicago.
Yeah, I agree with you on your verdict there. I mean, Chicago wanted a defense. They needed a defense. They already have their forward set for the year. Yeah. So they got a defense. I don't think Zadorov is that great myself.
He's physical, and that's the only thing I can say about him.
Yeah. Colorado wanted to add offense to their top 9. They got Chicago to keep $1 million of Saad's $6 million, and it's only for 1 more year. Yeah. So it seemed like a good gamble, and then Lindholm and Gilbert just seemed like a swap of reclamation prospects. So I give the winner to Colorado for receiving the best player in the trade, and participant ribbon to Chicago on that one. Yes. And then, as you alluded to, Colorado quickly replaced Zadorov in a trade shortly after. Yes. Getting Devon Taves from the Islanders for 2 second-round picks. Yes. So, like I said, they immediately replaced, and I called an upgrade on Zadorov.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for them.
He's an RFA, 26, only in his second full NHL season last year, and 6 goals, 28 points. He's supposed to be some kind of like power play QB.
Yep.
I don't watch the Islanders that much, so I can't really say.
I don't think he's going to play that role in Colorado, I'll say that.
Yeah, and so looking at his stats and what role he's going to fill for them, I just felt 2 second-rounders was kind of a steep price, especially since the Islanders had extra D.
Yep.
So I gave the winner in this trade to the Islanders in the ribbon to Colorado.
I agree with you there. I think that basically New York played to their strength, and they knew that they had a very solid group of defensemen and they could move one out, and they got back 2 second-round picks, which I think is decent return for Taves. And yeah, I'll give the win to New York, but I think that Taves will essentially replace Zadorov, so it's not a bad move for Colorado.
Yeah.
They got a defenseman. You know,
sure.
I think he's probably an upgrade on Zadorov, but again, win to New York.
Okay.
And then Watson.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Nashville traded Austin Watson to Ottawa for a 4th-round pick. Watson has been a decent player. He's had some off-ice issues. I think that for Ottawa, they needed again to get cap. A 4th-round pick isn't that much to pay. I'll give the win to Ottawa. I don't really think it does that much for Nashville, especially since they didn't sign Taylor Hall. So, again, I think for Ottawa, it's probably serviceable. He's a body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of went the other way just because he has 3 years left. I mean, it's only at 1.5, but he seemed like a good playoff performer at one point, and his stats have just been going down during the regular seasons, and that's like he alluded to, probably due to his off-ice problems.
Yeah.
I just felt a 4th was a little bit too much.
Okay.
For the recommend, and it's only a 4th.
Yeah.
So I gave the win to the Preds on this one, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't really care.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those ones that isn't too exciting.
No, but it was there.
Alrighty, and then we got Johnsson to New Jersey for Joey Anderson. And after I said that I think Joey Anderson's a better player than we think, I will still give the win to New Jersey because I think Johnsson can be a 20-goal scorer. I think he will fit on one of those top two lines in New Jersey with either Hughes or Hischier, and he'll be a serviceable player for them for basically a bottom 6 player. So I give the win to New Jersey.
Me too. Win to New Jersey, ribbon to Toronto. Toronto was forced into this move because of cap concerns. They were over the cap. I haven't done as much homework, I don't think, on Joey Anderson as you. Just looking at his basic stat lines, it's a little underwhelming, but...
Well, yeah, first when I looked at that trade, I was like, okay, so they traded him for no one, basically. Right. And then I looked into it, and I was like, okay, maybe there's something more to him. But
we'll clip it, and we'll come back and see Joey Anderson's a player one day. But yeah, for now, winner, obviously New Jersey, they get a good player.
Yeah.
A decent player. That's it for the 4 trades.
Yes.
I think I was going to move on to, because of the Pietrangelo signing and the cap conundrum, they're in now in Vegas.
Yes.
I was just going to throw some predicted trade things around with you here. And I think they're, I've read and heard that Vegas is going to be looking to trade any of Nate Schmidt, Alec Martinez, Max Pacioretty, Jonathan Marchessault. So looking at that situation, do you think, based on the predicament we're in and the trade we just talked about with Toronto being over the cap, Vancouver might be able to pull something like a Berchi and a 5th to Vegas? Because they do need to move a little money out to bring in a Nate Schmidt. Yeah. But Vegas is in a spot, right?
Yeah, Vegas is in a spot. I think whoever they're basically going to have to move, as you said, one of those 4 players. I think Pacioretty is going to be too hard to move right now with the $7 million cap hit. So probably out of those few, I think Nate Schmidt is the most likely to move. He's also the most rumored to move. I don't know if they can take back Berchi, so I wonder if you'd have to almost involve a 3rd team.
Right.
Just because of the predicament that Vegas is in.
Right.
And yeah, they're going to probably have to tack on maybe even a pick with one of their players to move them out kind of thing. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a chance here for Vancouver to do something. So please don't mess it up.
Pardon me, I threw Berchi in there just because I think I'll predict it, and we'll see if I'm right one day. I think Vegas is going to trade 2 of those guys.
Yeah, I can see that. They kind of have to.
I think they're going to be forced into it, so I think they're going to be forced into taking a little bit of money back. And if they look at it and like Schmidt's making $6 million for 5 more years, and if they say, okay, well, we're only taking 3 back on Bearshee for 1 year, that might be palatable. And Vancouver might be able to say, hey, we'll hold $1 million or something like that. And then they gain 4, but then they still got work to do. Just because I'm a Philly guy, I'm going to throw it there that I think that they could use a player like Nate Schmidt. I know they signed Eric Gustafson today and whatever. But I feel like if Philly could finally use Ghosty Bear as their trade chip that they haven't been able to pull off yet, and swing him plus something, maybe to Winnipeg, because it's been rumored for a while for Ehlers. It would save Winnipeg money.
I just wonder with Winnipeg now that they signed Stastny, like I feel like they're gonna not want to trade either Ehlers or Laine, but or at least they'll go this year, right? Because Stastny just has the 1 year left, and then if it all goes to shit or whatever, they can move on one of those players. But I don't see it happening now, but they are gonna need to move cap next year, right? Winnipeg, so
All right, well, we'll see. See what Vegas does. That's everything from those papers. I've only got goalie carousel stuff, so
we can move into the goalie carousel stuff.
I mean, it's an incomplete goalie carousel stuff, but 12 of our goalies that or 16 goalies we predicted have signed. So far, Laura again is beating me by 1. She's got 2 out of 12 correct, and I've got 1 out of 12 correct. So there's still 4 to go. We both got Lainer back to Vegas correct, and then you got Thomas Grace to Detroit, which great call, very good call. Other than that,
there's been nothing, and I feel like I don't even know if I can get any more right.
Miller to Anaheim. That's all I got going for me.
About any of the signings, who were you most surprised with where they ended up?
With where they actually ended up? Let me look at the list here. I mean, Talbot to Minnesota was certainly a head scratcher because, like, we knew they were trying to upgrade the goaltending, and I didn't see that happening at all. It was between that one, Grace to Detroit, because like sure, he's going to be the bona fide starter for once. But
what's he gonna do?
And that defensive system is nowhere near as good as any team he's played for. And then the third one was Corey Crawford to New Jersey. I thought was kind of interesting because they've already had such bad luck with injured goalies, and he's not anywhere what he used to be. And I figured at his point in the career, he'd probably want to keep winning after winning a couple times.
Right.
And I don't think New Jersey's going to do it. So one of those 3, they all threw me off quite a bit. But you?
I think Crawford to New Jersey as well for me was a surprise. Smith back to Edmonton as well was a surprise because I thought they would have upgraded that position for sure. So I think those 2 are probably the top ones for me. Everything else I'm not totally shocked with.
And I mean, like, Keith Kincaid to New York Rangers was surprising only because I didn't realize that they didn't have either their goalies eligible for the expansion draft, so they kind of had to sign somebody
just to be expendable, kind of. But that was interesting for sure.
So 4 to go. We'll see. But I have a feeling I'm going to take another loss in this one. 0-2 on the year.
We'll see. There'll be more.
And then, so I know you want to circle back. Let's circle back.
To the Canucks?
Yes.
Alrighty. So the Canucks, Jim Benning has made some interesting moves over his tenure as the GM of the Canucks. Most of them have been, the drafting has been very good, but most of his free agent signings have been terrible. And this year seems to be the year that it's all come back to bite him. If they hadn't signed Beagle, if they hadn't signed Sutter, if they hadn't signed Ferland, Roussel, any of those players, then they could have kept at least one of, Tanev, Stetcher, Markstrom, and Toffoli. And, I guess for me, Tanev and Markstrom leaving sucked, but when I saw the contracts they got, I was kind of like, okay, you go do you. Again, Markstrom battled his way from the AHL. He played on a really bad Canucks team for a number of years. He kind of deserves this moment, and I'm okay with him going. It's fine.
Sucks that it's Calgary.
But again, you go get your money, and I get it. Tanev, great Canuck. I'm never going to be able to cheer against Chris Tanev. I love him. but again, it was too steep a price. And so I'm like, okay.
Too many years,
too steep a price.
Yeah.
Let's move on. But you have to move on with someone. And you look at teams like Toronto who are moving cap around and not necessarily making the greatest moves, but they're making moves.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why the Canucks can't do anything.
That's what I was going to ask you next is, you know, you look at some of the contracts that got signed, especially the Stetcher deal, and we talked about how the Canucks have $8 to $9 million in cap space.
Yeah. We
talked about Fernand's going to get 3, so let's say they have 5.
Yeah.
But like,
why couldn't they sign Stetcher?
Why couldn't they sign Stetcher?
Well, evidently, did you hear the story with that one?
Mm-mm.
So, like, Jim Benning was super in on Tyson Barrie, and Barrie chose Edmonton over Vancouver, which for Barrie is smart because he'll get top power play minutes there. He won't get them in Vancouver.
No.
That's Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
But he was in on him, and he told Stetcher that he'd call him back, and then evidently he fell asleep. And then Stetcher was like, I can't wait for you anymore, and signed with Detroit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
So it's stupid. It's very Canucks luck-ish. Because once they lost out on Barrie, I'm sure they would have signed Stetcher.
Right.
But even then, as you say, Barrie signed for $4 million or around $4 million. They could have probably fit Stetcher in there too. They would have just had to move out a bit of money. But you see other teams do it. I know it's not great to... You don't want to have to add on those prospects, but even if you add on a pick or something, like a 3rd round pick, a 2nd round pick, I'd be okay with it if it frees something up so your defense isn't some mixture of, you know, Rafferty, Rathbone, Ben, Ulevi,
yeah.
and then Hughes and Edler and Myers. But it's not really an NHL defense right now. And yeah, I get it. You want to give the guys, like the Utica guys, a chance to make the team. But make it a competition for one of them to make the team, not 3 of them.
Yeah.
Or Chatfield that Benning keeps bringing up, which is scary because you're like, why do you keep talking about Galen Chatfield?
Yeah.
Again, so we'll see what happens. I don't want to freak out too much because it could be that they make a trade and it could be a smart trade, right? Like with Vegas being in that position. You might be able to, I've heard, you know, like Florida wants to move on from Weegar, like Mackenzie Weegar, like maybe you can pry him away for not too much in return.
Yep. And I guess there are like 32 players who filed for salary arbitration, so they could maybe prey on somebody who's not going to want to sign that deal
RFA,
or whatever.
Yeah. So there's definitely some optimism in the sense that the season's not starting and this isn't the team we're starting with. I think that Braden Holtby was an incredibly smart signing. I think that, you know, Toffoli, for me, it's not so much the player because I think he fit in well with that group, but you could replace him with someone else that could probably pick up his points, but you have to get that player.
Yeah, and I mean, how many years have they been asking who's going to play right wing with Bo?
Yeah.
Right? Like, everyone knows it's a position they need to fill every year almost.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
And I don't think that Hoglander is going to be ready if that's what they're banking on bringing him in. I think he's going to need another year. And, yeah, it's annoying. I mean, there's other teams, again, out there that haven't done much, that have lost players. But I feel like Vancouver has, if you look at Calgary, for example, they lost, you know, Hamnick, Brody on their blue line, and Gustafsson, I guess. And then they replaced them with, you know, Tanev and Petrovic and those guys. And it's like, okay, I see your plan. It might not be exactly the same as what you had. It might not be as good as what you had, but at least you have bodies
coming
there.
back in.
And you also have a better goalie than you had before.
Yep.
So for the Canucks, it's a tough pill to swallow right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not so much surprised. Like, Toffoli was a great fit. I really wanted to come back just because I love the Canucks and play well. But you look on the cap friendly or whatever, and they've already got 13 forwards for next year. Yeah. And I think they're just going to stick it out that way and hope Virtanen turns out or McEwen turns out.
The other thing to consider too, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
is because next season might be a shortened season. You know, perhaps the Canucks and their owners don't care as much about next year as they do the following year. Right. So they almost say, like, okay, we're probably not going to have fans in the stands. Who cares how good our team is this year? Let's get a high draft pick, and then next year we'll go all in. But if I was, you know, part of the Canucks management, I guess the other argument to it is, you know, that Hughes and Pettersson are going to get big pay raises next year, and it's not going to get easier. I mean, you're going to lose some of that dead money in the bottom six, and it will kind of balance out the team a bit better because you'll have your best players making more money than your bottom six players.
Yeah.
But it's not going to necessarily make it easier for you to manage the cap.
Right.
So
there's a caveat there too, because they have a third RFA next year in Demko, and if he has a great year and he really puts Holtby into the backup position, that's going to be more money that they need to throw to 3 players next year, right?
Yeah.
So, like I was saying, the forwards, I think they're just kind of stuck because of, like you said, all the bad contracts. They're just stuck, right?
Yeah.
And I was putting together my top 12 with what they have, and Eriksson's not in the lineup, and they have 12 players that are NHL players, but it won't be as good as last year. And for me, I'm a little bit different in my feeling about the defense because I kind of have a little more time for Brogan Rafferty. Yeah. Just because he transitioned from the NCAA to the AHL so well, and generally it takes college players a little bit longer to make that well of a transition. So I've kind of got time of day for him, and I'd give him 10 games in the second pairing slot just to see how he works.
Just to see how he does.
And then let UL Levy or not Chatfield. Who's the other one?
Rafferty and Rathbone.
Yeah, Rathbone and UL Levy. Let them battle for the 7th, right? Yeah. So I'd be okay seeing 2 guys try to rise up into the 7 defense, but on that note, they would still need to bring in someone. Yeah. I would, like, again, with Rafferty, the only thing that scares me about him is his age, because I know he's not as young as we think, and I forget how old he is now. But I know that Stetcher was younger than him when he made it to the NHL. I think he was in his 2nd year with how old Rafferty is now. And again, he played very well in the AHL. He put up a ton of points. There's potential there, but I just don't know if you want to go in with no other plan, I guess is the thing. Right. But, yeah. We'll see. We will see. We'll see how it goes. Time will tell. Yeah. It's been a frustrating and disappointing last 5 days for sure, listening to all the players leave Vancouver. Yeah, it's been hard. The only positive thing I will say about Toffoli leaving is that hopefully that puts kind of the Besser trade talk to bed a bit here, which I would have thought would have been a mistake if you chose Toffoli over Besser. So that part I'm kind of like, okay, he now has a role. He has a spot on that power play. Hopefully he has a good bounce back season next year. Yep. Not necessarily bounce back, but hopefully he scores more next year. Anyway, so that was my positive with Toffoli leaving, because again, he was a good fit, but I think there's other players that could come in and play that role. Okay. On Vancouver. I've got 2 things I want to throw out here before we wrap. One, a theoretical for you. Okay. With Turris signing in Edmonton, and I've got to hate Edmonton, so I'm disappointed we're talking, but that obviously says one of 2 things. The Nuge is now a permanent winger. Yes. Or do you think they're trying to revisit the Nuge for a defense trade? Like, apparently a few years ago, I think you might remember there was talks of him straight up for a Dumba or a Brody, and there's no way Minnesota's doing that now. No. Do you think that's what they might be doing, or do you think they're totally happy with him as a winger? I think they're happy with him as a winger. Okay. And I also think that's because of their other signings. If they'd signed a winger, I think that maybe then you would have thought more about them trading. Right. But, you know, their top 6 is still pretty bare. Like, outside of the big 2. Mm-hmm. Really. Gambles, Boulejardy, stuff like that. Yeah, right? And Cassian, I guess. But again, like, nothing really concrete. So I think that he's moved permanently to the wing. But we'll see. We might get to clip this, too. Mm-hmm. And then my last theoretical I wanted to ask you about was lost it. Yeah, that's okay though. It's a theory. We'll get it next time. I'll get it next time. It'll come back to me. Yeah. Well, that was fun. That was a good talk. Yeah. There was a lot of stuff to talk about in the last, since it was Friday we did the last one, was it, or Saturday? Or? Yeah. But hopefully there's more to talk about in this next week. Hopefully there's some more signings or some trades, and hopefully it involves the Canucks or Philly. Hopefully. Yeah. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Yeah. Thanks again for listening. Hockey Talk on the Rock. Yeah. Warren Keith. Episode 7. Yep. Woo! Have a good night, everybody. See ya. Quick news flash, because while we were filming, a trade went down, Laura. Trade Center. Alrighty, the Canucks have acquired Nate Schmidt from Las Vegas for a 3rd round pick in 2022. Very good, yeah. I talked about maybe trying to move some money out, but
I think that's a good deal. Again, the Canucks will probably have to try and move some money out now because of their cap situation. So it goes around, comes around, I guess. But I'm a lot more confident about their defense just with that one ad, as we were just talking about.
Yeah, we were talking about the biggest thing was top 4 defense and at least one more qualified NHL defense. So
because now you have Ben, and you can play him with one of those Utica boys, and they can all fight for those bottom pairing jobs.
For sure. And one thing I forgot to bring up that I thought was interesting with them was the expansion draft. Hughes is still non-eligible, right, or exempt. So they would only have to protect Myers at that point.
Yeah, because
now
Edler's
Schmidt,
gone.
right?
Yeah.
So now, that was another reason I was wondering why they were so willing to let their D-men walk, because it's not like they had slots that were already filled for the protection.
Yeah.
Anyways, Schmidt's now protected. I like it.
I like it too, and then the other thing too is because I think he makes 5.5.
5.95.
Okay, so basically $6 million, and then Edler is done next year, so it doesn't really affect the Pettersson Hughes contract situation.
He'll
which
replace
is nice.
Edler after next year.
That's a pretty good deal. I like Nate Schmidt. He seems like a good locker room guy. He's a very serviceable defenseman, and good job, Jim Benning.
Good job, Jim.
Thank you for answering my prayers.
Thank you for not falling asleep before the deal got done.
It was beautiful.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.